minutes late. Some of our candidates, the mayor is stuck in traffic. You know, there was something big there was 5 fire trucks under Davidson Street when I came. I mean, it was terrible. And they were going, 5 trucks were going the wrong way. They had to, on that road that leads down to the highway. I mean, they I don't know what happened. Ken, you got a report on that?
I'll find out.
Okay. Okay.
Storm tracker back there.
Oh, storm tracker, okay. Ms. Diaz, would you come up front, please, because you're a mayoral candidate. Good morning, my name is Mary Johnson, for those who have not been here before. Do we have any first-timers? Do we have any first? Oh, okay. Well, you're going to introduce yourself anyway, okay? Okay, so everyone has been here before. We always start with the prayer. Jackie, will you lead us in a prayer? Thank you.
Father, thank you so much for our just being able to come together today. We just ask that you bless each and every person who's assembled here at the Sarah Stevenson Tuesday prayer. Let the proceedings go well in the name of the soon coming King.
Amen.
Thank you very much. Okay, since everyone has been here before, we all know the rules. We have our presenters who are candidates for mayor, and as many of you know, Lucille Puckett was also a candidate for mayor. Her son passed away. He was in an automobile accident. Yes, that's what happened to him. He was in an automobile accident and had a seizure, and his funeral is today. Okay, so just keep Lucille and her family and friends in your prayers. This is the second son that she has lost. Okay. So, as we move on, both of our candidates will have a chance to speak, give their platforms, and then we'll open it up for questions. I will call on you, so you don't have to call on the questions. They'll raise their hand and in the order that, I'll write their names down in the order that they raise their hand, and then I'll call on them, and then I ask you to be brief in your question. You know, don't give a commentary. Just ask your question, and then you can answer it as complete, but as brief, you know, as you can. So while we're waiting on the mayor, is it okay if I let Mr. Hick go ahead and introduce himself? And okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Nathalie is our time.
30 seconds, and I'll let you know when your time is up.
Exactly.
Stressful.
Okay. And I didn't have a chance to introduce our facilitators here, even though you know them, Mr. Winston Robinson. Raise your hand. Nathalie McElrath. Okay, who else do we have? Jackie. Jackie's back there. Jackie Walton Edwards. Carlenia Ivory is here. Steve is here. Steve. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you too. Okay. So, who am I missing? I said Carlene. Huh? Oh, she's not here today. Okay, Miss McClenny is out of town.
I'm here.
Okay, you're in her place. Okay. Okay, we're gonna let Mr. Hicks go ahead and give his platform.
Well, hello. Thank you. And, hello. Good morning. Thank you. Rob Yates. I'm running for mayor. I really appreciate being here. This is actually like the first event I've done, not just running for mayor, but ever. And it's weird sitting here talking to you like I don't claim any special ability or status. I'm looking at things and I got sick of them. Like, I got 2 kids, 15 and 8, and I look at our education system, and it's just every year it gets worse, but we're asked for more money. And then we spend $1 million on clear backpacks that end up in a recycling facility somewhere. Or teachers need to get paid more. Yeah, good teachers need to get paid more, but where's all this money going? We can't keep our children safe. We have assaults happening on buses. It seems insane to me, and no one's held accountable. No one's even called to question for it. And I'm just like, I can't sit back and do nothing. I don't know what I can do. Again, I make no claims to superpowers. I don't have some hidden talent. I think about this stuff a lot. I read a lot. I read a lot of philosophy, a lot of economics. I truly believe that the best way to turn our city around, and I do think our city is going in the wrong direction, is through some government accountability. We have housing prices soaring. Meanwhile, we have these weird restrictive zoning laws that are supposed to make everything better for everyone and bring affordable housing in. And yet at the snap of a finger, when some developer comes in and wants a change, we're willing to make a change. And then you look at who's funding all these campaign, all the campaigns, and the donors are all the developers. They're pouring hundreds of thousands of dollars into people's campaigns, city and statewide. We have, so actually, one good note is crime went down to this date year over year from last year, but then violent crime has gone up. Murders have gone up. Property crime has gone up. Are we going to ask our police to stop the crime? Are we going to hold our police accountable? We have this wishy-washy policy in terms of how we engage with our police. There's just no accountability at any end. And so the first thing I want to do is come in and just hold people accountable. You said you're going to do something. You failed. 30% of our students are reading on grade level. 13% of Black and Hispanic students are reading on grade level at 3rd grade. That is unacceptable. And why is no one asking what's going on here? And that's all I'm going to do is come in and say, why are we missing so miserably? Because I've been in the corporate world for 23 years, and if I was at a job where I was hitting 13% of my targets, I would be out the door so fast. And it seems unfair to us as citizens of Charlotte that we are going to sit here and be told, no, you will accept this and you'll be happy about it.
Oh, okay.
I'm not worth 3 minutes, I promise.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, Ken has the first question.
I find it interesting that, sure.
I guess that makes sense.
You'll probably find a lot of support in a lot of what you said. But what I find most interesting is that the bulk of what you said focuses on education. And so I'm wondering, do you not understand the way the political process works in terms of who has authority and responsibility versus what you feel? Because a lot of what you said is school board related. And how did you come to the conclusion with all of that concern that you wanted to run for mayor and have the greatest impact?
So 100%, and believe me, I considered this extensively. I thought about running for school board, but I'm not qualified to run for school board. What I am qualified to do is take full advantage of a bully pulpit to hold people's feet to the fire when they're failing. So our school board is not challenged anywhere. Look through the press. You see some sniping back and forth on Twitter, this sort of popular blah blah that our country loves to do right now that is frankly useless. But no one's actually asked the question. Why is it that when you were setting your goals 2 years ago in terms of students reading on grade level, you had to fight for 2 hours to get it to 65% and then made a comment, but we're never going to reach that anyway? Why is that okay? And no one's asking it. And what is the biggest megaphone in the city? It's the mayor. So I can, from the mayor's office, pick and choose areas to go after and just hold people accountable, let the people know. I don't honestly put the onus of fixing the schools on the school board, specifically. I put it on us. But we're not informed, we're not engaged, we're not being engaged, we're not being pulled in, and that's what I want to do with this. I want to make Charlotte truly a city for the people of Charlotte.
Okay, how would you, what would you do for the transit system? What are your thoughts about that? Okay, you're gonna sit. Can you talk about the transit system?
I'm
Rob
Vi.
Yates, very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's another one where there's no transparency into what's going on. So what did it cost to build that 6 miles of train out to university, $180 million or something? What was the bidding process? Who was involved? Actually, let me give credit where it's due. One thing that I thought we did well, so we put in these toll roads, they seem to be a good thing. When the company building the toll roads went over, the city immediately stepped in and started fining them $30,000 a day. They're violating a contract, we're holding them accountable. I want to see more of that. But why are we having so many accidents, so many big train derailings, so many bus accidents? It's in the headline of the Charlotte Observer every other week. And meanwhile, how effective is our transit system? And I know the answer, this is a rhetorical question, but at getting to people who don't necessarily have access to cars, people who don't have the means to get places, and people for whom getting to a job is much more important. If I call in sick or if I'm running late, I'm okay. If you're an hourly worker, that's a big thing. And if you're late a few times, all of a sudden you don't have a job. These aren't people with savings accounts. These are people who live paycheck to paycheck. It's really important. So being able to trust in your transit system is critical to living every day. Again, it just comes down to accountability. When something goes wrong, it's root cause analysis. Okay, what went wrong? Why? I think right now, because we're in such a polarized environment, people tend to deflect because they think they're going to get blamed. And so when I say accountability, it is specifically for where things are going wrong.
Okay, thank you. Our mayor has entered the room. The traffic has been terrible out there. I know.
There's an accident on, there's a fire truck and a couple of police cars right at the exit. So.
Right there at, right under Davidson
Yes.
Street. I encountered that too. There's 5 fire trucks out there.
Okay.
Okay, so I totally understand. I knew that you would have trouble getting here, but I'm going to give her a chance to speak. You need any time just to catch your breath? I tell you what, you go ahead and ask your question, and then if you have a question. I'm gonna let him go ahead and ask his question. I'm gonna let you introduce yourself.
Thank you.
Yes. Franklin Muhammad, Champ Franklin speaks. And so my question is, when you talk about the reading level of the 3rd graders, 4th graders, 5th graders, 6th graders, what program would you put in place to improve their reading outside of the efforts that are done in the school? Because the teachers have only so many hours in a day, only so many students can read per day. And so having you're gonna have to have another program that supplements what they have right now if they are going to get better. And what would you propose for that?
Sure, so I think there's a couple things. Every study that's ever been done shows the strongest correlation between student success and any other factor you can bring in is actually parent involvement in schools. And it tends to be because it translates to an environment of education going on at the homes. You have kids reading books before they go to bed. You have learning engaged activities, math, making things fun. I know that is not possible for everyone, and certainly we don't want to leave people out whose parents can't engage at that level, but you start there. You set a culture of positive education reinforcement. And then number 2, the most successful education tact, and again, this is proven by multiple studies, but it's differentiated education. A top-down approach will never work because every student is different. And the more the school board tries to mandate process, the less successful they're going to be. I believe the role of the school board should be to set the standards and then allow parents to get involved at the school level to the degree possible, and then free teachers up to teach in a way that's going to educate each student. And right now, I think that we are responding by trying to mandate more and more from the top, and it's clearly sending things in the wrong direction.
Okay, we're gonna switch gears a moment and let the mayor introduce herself. And I just wanted to say this to the audience. I know that he mentioned the school system, but I would prefer that you would ask questions regarding city responsibilities, and I just jotted down a few like affordable housing, the transit system, the crime, upward mobility, the police and fire, medic, and I'm sure there are others, but let's make this short period of time that we have here really count to get their opinions and their platforms on those things, okay? So I'm gonna give the mayor a few minutes to speak, and then we'll open it up further for questions. Thank you.
Well, first, let me apologize for not having the time and wisdom to watch that red stripe that, oh, sorry. Okay, thank you for giving me a little bit of grace, considering when I looked at the waves, the road was red and I just kept on going. So anyway, thank you. Well, good morning, everyone, for the group for coming today. Thank you for coming to hear about what is important in our community. I think all of us as candidates really care deeply about the city. And so I have not met Mr. Yates, but it's a delight to meet you now. Thank you. So I am asking you to support me in your ways that you can as we continue this journey of growing from a small, sleepy town that had a couple of banks on the corner to a place that we're now almost, I think, the 14th largest city in this country. And we are experiencing growth really tremendously fast, and we're all struggling with that. I understand that. But we have to have systems in place. The whole thing about government is that if you're not about the idea, if you have an idea, then an idea is great. The process to implement that idea is the most important part of what the city council and mayor do. And so I think that what's important is what Ms. Johnson already said: affordable housing, safety, the idea of how to move around a city. So my platform and my goal would be to actually create a place and a system working with the Biden administration to get the ability to move around the city and also have affordable housing connected close to where people would move. So mass transit is very important. But what's more important is for us to go to Washington and ask for the money that they're going to give away, to give it to us, because we're the people that set it up there. I don't want our money to go to Austin, Texas. I don't want our money to go to New York City. So what we have to do is figure out how to get a mobility plan approved that allows people to get to work where the jobs are, and how to build affordable housing close to where mass transit is, so that people will not have to spend $5,000 on a car when they can spend perhaps $2,000 riding mass transit. So that's my goal and my vision for this term. I hope you've seen the success that we've had in affordable housing. I don't know how many of you know that we're now building affordable housing in Valentine. We're building it on 2 sites. Things like that take time, I know, and we're all impatient. But I would ask for your patience with us as we continue to adjust to being one of the fastest growing cities and trying to maintain the quality of life that we want to have in this community. So I'm Vi Lyles, and I'm currently your mayor and would like to retain and remember to be your mayor in the future.
Thank you very much. Okay, Jackie.
The mayor answered my question. I wanted her to link transportation and affordable housing, but we're going to do it this time.
Okay.
Well, can I add something to that? I think that, and many of us know that it's not affordable necessarily to live in Charlotte. But there are places surrounding Charlotte that if we have a mass transit system that works, then we can allow people to have choices. Some of the people in this room might choose to live in a $500,000 house. But there may be others that have other ways that they want to deal with it. So we have to start looking at our regional approach to transit. So Mount Holly, Harrisburg, Concord, Kannapolis, those ought to be places that people can live and still work in Charlotte. And if that doesn't happen, commerce isn't going to come unless they have talent. And so we have to create the ways that people can get the jobs and get to work and home in a reasonable amount of time. And that's the goal that we have for mobility.
Okay, did you want him to respond to that too?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so I think it's sort of, at best, inefficient to try to offer a solution until you understand why a problem exists. Right now, we have some of the weirdest, most restrictive zoning laws in the country, and we have revised those laws to just being weird. They used to be incredibly restrictive, but then we would make changes to specific areas of those laws every time a developer requested to make a change. And so what you get are whole bunch of developments that serve the interests of developers and no one else. And you have massive apartment structures going up in suburban neighborhoods that are already overtaxed. So response times from emergency responders, police, ambulance is down. But then you get their lower end up to luxury apartments, I guess, to be fair, but they're not affordable housing. It's just catering to these developers' needs. It's not near mass transit. It's not letting the market solve the problem. If people need affordable housing near transit, my solution is not to come in and pick and choose winners and losers. It's to say, let's, like I said, bring the people into this. Where do we really need this? Let's let affordable housing develop around mass transit areas and let mass transit spread out naturally instead of trying to create solutions that might not work.
All right, we have a question from one of our online viewers, Faith Triggs, from Habitat for Human, Habitat Charlotte. What project were you involved in that you wish had a different outcome from your original intent? And if you could go back and change it, what would it be? And the project, yeah, let's just stick it right there. We got some grammar issues. But yeah, what project that you're involved in that you would change or that did not have the outcome of its original intent?
Okay, who is that to?
Both candidates.
Well, I'm sure Mr. Yates doesn't want to take I'm sure Mr. Yates does not want to take, I guess, the authority of what we've been doing on the city council on the side of projects and management of projects. The one project that I think that I would like to have seen done differently is bus rapid transit along Independence Boulevard. We tried a study. We had a pilot. We did a study. We did surveys of people that lived along that route. And I think that we didn't do that sufficiently well to look at it as a regional approach for people to do and have. So that would be one of the projects that I would say. And I just really believe that linking the opportunity to move around the city is intensely related to how we build affordable housing and how do we create jobs. So that would be that. I want to say that everybody should know now that Habitat is going to celebrate Jimmy Carter's build in this city. If you'll go out to West Boulevard by Amy James Elementary School, you'll see a whole new neighborhood coming up. And I want to thank, I'm not sure who it was from Habitat that brought this question forward, but I hope all of us recognize the value of Habitat because they keep people in their homes. They are also our contractor from the city to repair housing that is having problems being maintained in many of the neighborhoods that are Black and brown. So Habitat is a deep partner with us as we continue to try to keep people aging in place in their homes. I hope that people know that you can get, new kinds of heating system, HVAC replacement, your house can be renovated, and I think these programs are essential to us, and Habitat's doing a great job.
Okay, Ken. You didn't answer. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be disingenuous for me to try to answer. I'm not in city government. I promise you, if nothing else, you're going to get pretty straightforward honesty from me. And it's also disingenuous to try to be critical of specific projects when I wasn't involved, because I don't know what the process was. As mayor, I would go in and I could answer that question on day one. I would happily open the books, look at the details, and tell you where I thought things went wrong. If there's one thing going on now that I'm really critical of, it is the police asking for $500,000 to get a military weapon to breach buildings because of potential bomb threats, which has never happened in Charlotte. That seems like a massive waste of money and something that could be very well allocated elsewhere. But again, in terms of specific projects, that's not my place. That's not who I am.
Okay. To the transit issue, in terms of being able to provide a transit system to meet the needs of people in communities, I'm not sure who negotiates the transit system contract, but as I understand it, those workers get 1 day off a week as inexcusable absences, which basically, if they all decide excited. I ain't going to work today. We in deep trouble. But my question refers more so to the transit system. Would you consider it necessary to eliminate buses going into and through particular neighborhoods where there are affordable housing units and a workforce of people who use the transit system, but those buses have been eliminated from going through those neighborhoods for a variety of, according to the transit system, justifiable reasons. But that would seem like to be counterproductive to what you want to accomplish in providing transportation to people who really need it.
What you said, Ken, is accurate. We do not have the workforce to have the drivers come back into since the pandemic. And it's not any different than a lot of corporations and businesses that are seeing people are not coming back to work as quickly as we need them to be. So we had to make some really crucial decisions, and those decisions were where to keep the routes that most people could access. Now, we are coming out of that in some respects. We have a micro transit pilot going on in the northern part of the county, and we're working on how do we get the shared drivers to be able to take people to access the buses so that you don't have, we had I'm just be as candid as possible. We had a lady come to our last MTC meeting and she says she has to walk 2 miles. So how do we get Uber or Lyft or whomever's going to be that shared driver provider that gives her the ability to get to that stop by having another mode that she'll have to take? But we are gradually seeing an increase in ridership, and as more we see the increase, the more that we can put more routes back in service since the pandemic.
Okay, Blanche, and then I'm sorry, but after Blanche, I have 2 online questions that I need to ask. We do have an online audience, okay? So you go ahead and respond.
So this is, look, I think, to be fair, I think Mayor Lyles is acting very much in good faith. I think she genuinely wants what's best for the city of Charlotte.
I try my best.
Where we are truly diametrical opposites is that I don't believe a top-down solution will work. You heard her say we had to make some tough decisions. That breaks my heart. The government picked winners and losers. The state, the city of Charlotte said, oh, this tough decision, you're out. And that seems incredibly unfair to me. In terms of the transit issue, I think a lot of it comes back to zoning laws and then occupational licensing. So if you want to start, say, like a haircut salon, you have to get excessive licenses. It costs a whole bunch of money and you can only put it in one specific area. So affordable housing is away from where the jobs are, but why not open it up so that jobs can open up near affordable housing, which has proven to work in every city and every neighborhood it's ever been tried.
Okay, Blanche.
Good morning. I think this question is basically for the mayor. It's good you said something about the quality of life, transportation system, and people talk about the biking, things of that nature. And it's good that you talked about studies and data and so on. But my question is that seniors, number one, seniors, as far as transportation, we're definitely not going to be riding the bikes and doing too much walking and things of that nature. So what do you see in that surrounding area as far as seniors are concerned? And then with the affordable housing, because of the jobs, we cannot get those houses. I'm not going to say affordable because none of them are. Just coming over here, I looked at a lot of them and none of them are affordable. What are the plans as far as helping, especially our seniors and some of our young people? Because they're definitely not going to do that other piece of the transportation.
Well, as a senior myself, I think we all ought to be walking and biking a little bit more. At least I need to anyway. So what we have to do with our senior housing is to ensure that we work closely with the federal government on the allocations for senior housing. But we also look at this in a way that we want seniors to be able to stay in their homes. And we're struggling with how do we do that best. And so, for example, we have aging in place strategies. And this is one of the areas that we work so cooperatively or collaboratively with the county. And a lot of the county services are built around how do we help seniors maintain the quality of life. The people like you, Blanche, that are probably still able to do a cartwheel. I probably have never been able to do that. But in terms of having activities in senior centers, I think that's something that we value in this community. And we work hard with the county to represent that in our recreation centers as well as in our housing plans.
Yeah, I think particularly for people who are lucky enough to have lived a full life and entering the retirement age, why are they losing their houses? Their houses should be paid off. Yet we're seeing like 60% increases in property taxes in some places. You're on a fixed income now, you've paid your dues, and yet you're being asked for so much more money. I love the idea of aging in place. I think when you own something, it should stay yours, and no one should be able to tell you you have to pay an additional fee to stay in there. And I think that's a huge problem. Just lowering property taxes, all of a sudden, housing gets cheaper.
Okay, I actually have two questions that have come in online. The first one is for the mayor, and it is, what is considered affordable housing?
Well, what we look at is the percent of average median income in Charlotte. The median income in Charlotte is about $68,000 a year. So when we do the apartments that we invest your tax dollars in, we have to do 20% of those apartments or housing units that would be for 30% and below. And I'm not good at math, so somebody that is can tell us what 30% and below. All right, Gary, you can tell me that for $68,000 a year. So we have allocations when we invest your dollars in building affordable housing. 30% must go to, 20% must go to 30% and below. And that helps us with making sure that the lowest income levels are supported. But we also support Enlivian and the work that they're doing across their footprint as the federal housing agency in this community. It's a board that is supported by residents in this community, and Enlivian creates the opportunity for people, for example, in the center city where they're renovating the building next to the Carolina Theater. I can't remember the name of the building right now. So I think that that's what we do to make sure that affordability is addressed.
You want to say anything about?
If it was for the no, that's
okay.
okay.
That was pretty good. Okay, the next question is from Greg Essuto.
Mary?
Oh, the next question is from Greg Essuto. Okay, he's an East Side resident, and his question is for the mayor. His question is, given that hundreds of East Side residents oppose the proposal, could you elaborate on why, as recently as yesterday, you've been advocating for the QC East proposal at East Land Yards?
Well, that's interesting to me because I have not been taking a public position on this area, on this decision. And what I feel is really important is that we listen to the community. But I'm going to be very blunt here. We had a chamber full of people that came in to talk about those two proposals. The chamber was packed with people. There was not one black face that I saw, not one brown face that I saw in that community meeting that we had at the council. So I'm not quite sure. I'm not saying that we didn't do some of the things that are necessary, but I'm looking at the whole thing. When you look at that district, there are a lot of black and brown people that live there. I want to hear more about it. So my idea is that we ought to continue. The council committee yesterday recommended sending both proposals out for discussion on the 28th. I think what I'm looking for is, will we have more diversity of opinion and thought as we make this decision? I can just look at the demographics of the district and say we need to hear more from people that are going to be using the facility. So there are a lot of kids out there in that area. How do they get in to play sports? how do we adjust for them to be whatever that choice is? But my personal perspective is that we need more information from more of the people that actually reside in the district. Besides, and I get we have leadership and everybody that can do this, but it was just striking to me the audience that we had that said this is what we recommend, and I would hope that we'd have a little bit more diversity in that process.
Okay, very good. Did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a big proponent of a political philosophy called decentralization. And what that essentially means is that what's good for the Outer Banks is not necessarily what's good for Raleigh. And this is a perfect example, but on a smaller level. There is a centralized power structure that is trying to mandate what's going to happen in a specific neighborhood. The people in the neighborhood now have all their power taken away. Where is their voice? Where is the right to push back? And even if they're involved in the discussion to some degree, they don't ultimately have this sort of veto authority. No, I don't want that going on there. There's no situation, whether it's the QC development you mentioned or some tennis court for a billionaire, where I would be okay with the Charlotte City Council mandating to a neighborhood what is going to happen to that neighborhood.
Okay, Crispin.
Good morning. Is the goal for Charlotte to push working class on the outskirts? And if so, how can the community of people that's working class that own in the center city, how can they be protected and how can they protect their houses in capitalism, in this society where it's capitalism and usually the money always wins?
I can't agree with you anymore that when you look at what we have to deal with, that the business community, the development community, capitalism is all about what they're going to do. So how do we protect people? So just recently, TD Bank opened on LaSalle and Batesford Road. They have a community room, and in that room, they're going to do financial literacy lessons. That's happening all over. Neighborhood leaders are stepping up to do things that they can fight for and they can advocate for to make a difference. So what I'll tell you an example. A young senior called me and said, I've gotten all of these letters about, they want to buy my house and they're going to give me this money. And I said, tear those up. Go and figure out, talk to someone else. And I gave her a name to talk to in our neighborhood. And you just have to really make people aware. And leadership in the community is absolutely the way to do it. That neighborhoods are going to have to protect themselves, whether you choose to be a historic district, whether or not you choose to have your own discussions and have literacy training financially, whether or not you cooperate with the city or the county. These are things that you own and can influence greatly.
So it's a really interesting question, and in particular, you used the word goal. And I think that's very important. So quick aside, something about me, I have this policy where when I meet someone new, I genuinely try to pay that person a sincere compliment. And it's not kissing up, it's just like, I see you, I'm really paying attention. And in fact, for Mayor Lyles, one thing I've noticed looking at your administration is you've legitimately tried to set goals. And I respect that. It's not just willy-nilly random ad hoc. My problem with it is that the goals tend to be very outcome-based, and again, you get to this picking winners and losers situation. So to push labor to the outside, no, I don't think so. I think the goal should be to foster an environment where everyone has an opportunity for real upward mobility. What was the American dream 20, 30 years ago was that your next generation did better than you. And this is the first time in history we are not achieving that. We are seeing downward mobility across the board. And it doesn't have to be that way. And the scrambled response to try to fix that from the top, I think is done in good faith, but is what's making it worse.
Mr. Yates, I agree with you that it is a very difficult time in this country. But we also have to recognize that the city can do certain things to make a difference. And we work really hard in our lane. And there are other lanes that we have that perhaps aren't as, we don't have the ability to influence. I got an email about influencing and how to work harder at that. That means you have to build a number of trusted relationships at all levels of government. And we're really working hard on this because the state law really dictates what we can spend your tax dollars on. And I just can't decide that we're going to do a program if it doesn't fall within the parameters of some law that was written a long time ago. So sometimes we have people come in and they ask us to do things that I truly want to accomplish. But if I do, I might go to jail. And so, and I say that as kind of like a hyperbole, but at the same time, what I'm saying is that there are levels of government in this state that basically the county has the responsibility for maintaining people kinds of skills, education, a lot of work around how do we keep people doing really well. The city statutes basically focus on infrastructure for an urban community. So we have the responsibility to build roads, to maintain zoning in neighborhoods, and those kinds of issues. So when you say, how do we do this? You are not going to pay more taxes just because we think it's a good idea. We're going to have a goal, and they are outcome driven, and I'm working on that. I've got a Bloomberg consultant in working with us to talk about how do we do more measurements that will help us be better at the outcome. But I just want you to know that this is serious business. We're a $3 billion organization. You have to have the oversight to actually work within that parameter, and it's not as easy as people sometimes think that I can just make things happen. What I try to do is make relationships that I can encourage to other things that are occurring. I try to build relationships, and when I can't, I try to find the person that can. So I'm not going to Raleigh. We know who Raleigh is run by. Ed Driggs can go to Raleigh. And if I can get Ed to agree that this is an important priority, then he can do something that I can't. I can go to the Biden administration. Ed can't do that. So I want you to know that the job isn't just doing things that people ask for. It's deciding what's best for the entire community and figuring out a way to get it done.
Okay, thank you.
This question is for Mr. Yates. The mayor answered this earlier, and maybe again you can specifically share. I'm sorry, Yates.
No, it's Yates. You got it.
Yates. Yates. Is it Yates or Yates?
Yates.
Yates. Mr. Yates. Okay. Mr. Yates. In your role as a community leader, volunteer, maybe a member of your faith community, what have you accomplished? Something that you were involved in? You had your paw prints all over it, but it did not work out. And if it didn't work out, how would you have done something differently? That was the earlier question. Just because it would be good to see what you've been involved with as a community leader, volunteer. And then to piggyback on that, and to be fair, then what have one thing both of you have accomplished that you're really proud of?
So I like the Edison quote, I've never failed, I've just learned 10,000 times. In terms of things where I'd like a mulligan, perhaps, my career's been in the corporate world. I have lots. I've swung and missed big time on some projects, and I've gotten much better for them. In terms of community leadership, I don't have any that I wish I could redo. I'm pretty proud of some things. I've been a youth soccer coach for about 14 years, and we've got 11 championships.
Wow.
I've been the Charlotte chapter leader and the North Carolina co-chair for an organization called FAIR, the Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism. Last year we put on an amazing event with Daryl Davis. I don't know if you all know the civil rights activist, black piano player who's converted 260 KKK members. He's got the robes. We did an event in Raleigh, 2 hours, his presentation. I mean, I don't believe in heroes personally. I think we're accountable to ourselves, but if I was going to have one, it would be Daryl Davis, and I'm really proud of that. I think that translates into what I would do as mayor. It is about personal relationships, but interpersonal relationships. So when I hear Mayor Lyles say she can go to the Biden administration and Ed Riggs can go to the Republicans, what? Like, that's the country we live in? We can't talk to each other because we're not in the same parties? And I will do everything I can to break that cycle and just give the power back to the people.
Okay, before we get to our next one. Oh, I'm sorry.
Something that well, there are many things that I think we've done that have really had an impact. I actually am very proud of the work that we've done to raise money for Johnson C. Smith. $80 million and a new president. Hey, I see all of this. JC?
Yeah, you.
There we go. All right, so but I think I'm most proud that if I had to say what, at the end of this, what I've done is I've brought affordable housing awareness to not just the people that live in it, but the people that provide it, and the relationships that we've learned and built around the idea that affordable housing is a requirement to have a talented workforce and to have all of our business community actually aware of that. So we're seeing some small things that are being done. Perhaps one of the hospitals might begin to build places for nurses to live. The school system might explore, where do we build for teachers to live? These are all ideas that are grounded in the policies and the advocacy that all of you, it's not just by myself, every one of you has pushed and approved for affordable housing bonds since I can remember, and I am so grateful for that, and that's what I'm most proud of.
Okay, before we have our next question, I do have another online question, but I want to be respectful of our online people who are watching online. But there's a question that's about the Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools, and I know that that's not your lane. Okay, I am going to say the question, but we're not going to waste time, trying to answer this question unless you can. But I am going to say it. It says, if the median income is $68,000, what is your plan to get Charlotte-Mecklenburg school employees to that mark where they can afford to live here? Okay, so, but anyway, okay, well, let's go to Louise Woods. Is she next, or who's next? You're next.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Good morning to both Ms. Yates and Mayor Lyles.
I got you.
Mentioning the Biden administration earlier, I know there was a concerted effort by Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, to connect Black communities who were disconnected by transit systems and other things. And I wanted to know if you could speak to, actually, Mayor Lyles, if you could speak to some of the city's effort to go after some of those grants and opportunities to reconnect Black communities.
I wish I had the time to talk about some of that, because a lot of what we're doing is around what we fund locally to get things done. But what Build Back Better is doing, I want you to know North Carolina is going to be a battleground state. So that means all of us have to go get fitted for the battle that we're going to have. And so as a battleground state, the opportunities that USDOT, the Secretary has put forward, it's a simple plan. If we get the money to acquire a space for a station where we would have mass transit stop, that we also can have a lending mechanism or a funding mechanism for additional property that we could put affordable housing so that you are living right close to the stop. So we've seen what happened in South End. So what we would recreate is kind of that same premise, is where can affordable housing be built within a quarter of a mile or less to a station that would get you to work on time. That's what he's pushing as the Build Back Better program.
Okay.
I think that was just for
Okay. Louise Woods, former school board member. And then she's next.
First, Mayor Lyles, I've always been a supporter of yours.
And I'm a fan of yours too, Louise.
However, I must correct something that you just said.
Mm-hmm.
Don't like doing this, but accuracy is important to me. As a fellow East Sider, as a matter of fact, at the City Council meeting We had a number of people who were there of different backgrounds and different ages, and African Americans as well. And there are people who are here who can attest to that. So I'm not sure why you didn't see that. There was the other group actually had T-shirts somebody had bought. They were there when one of the council members asked people to raise their hands. I couldn't see everybody, but it looked like to me maybe 2 or 3 raised their hands that were even from the east side. I think I saw one African American in the whole group. So that, sure, many of the leaders, because of the age, because of the time of meetings, are there. Yesterday and before I was not allowed to go in the meeting because in yesterday I got in, but 2 people who I know, there were 20 people in the outlying area. Nobody spoke about them, nobody spoke to them. I did not know who was there except 2 people, but the 2 people I know of both happened to be African American, and my friend couldn't get there earlier. And she was there, I think, 30 minutes ahead of time, and very strong African American leaders. So I want to be sure that the African Americans and Hispanic people who signed the petition, that they also get recognition for the work that the East Side has done in pulling together around a proposal that, as a matter of fact, is, unless I'm missing something, I'm not in on everything, but I saw the presentation yesterday, and the person who presented for Proposal 2 that is very supportive. The East Side is extremely supportive regardless of that.
I hate to interrupt you, and I with all due respect, we need you to get to your question.
I will.
All right, you're really out of time, so thank you.
But I needed to correct.
Well, I want to say, I really appreciate the feedback. And if I'm missing something, I want to know that. I mean, I'm by no means perfect, but I guess what I would say is that the number of African Americans that were in the room the way that I could see them, and I did not see who was in the outer areas, but it was just really that the people that were supporting or were participating in the planning, those were the number of African American, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm just saying that in that district, over 30% of the people are African American, and it would be great to see better representation from the Black and brown people in the room, in a part of it, not planning, because you're making a big choice of how to spend $20 million. And that choice is important. And I want it to be something that's sustainable, that the community adopts and agrees upon, and I want to make it all sure. So I would say thank you. I'll take that feedback seriously, and from now on, I'll start walking in that room to see where people are. But again, let's try to figure out to get more engagement. And I know it's hard, but today's world is a possibility for how do we go to the community versus them having to come to us. And if that's something we need to do to make this more visible and seen for a decision, that's what we ought to do.
Okay. My question is this. Actually, the presenters, there were 2 presenting groups, and one was predominantly African American, which was the East Side supports. And I was concerned, and I'd like to see if you can correct this, because the presentation, it was clear to me that Mr. Belton, I believe, was not given information by staff ahead of time about some critical things that could have impacted what he did. So, I mean, in other words, I know that the council is concerned about representation. Okay.
I'm going to ask you to talk with her following the meeting, because this is getting a little long. Okay, so I really am going to ask you.
Could I just say then, how would you be sure that in both of them, that minority owning groups have the same information ahead of time, have accurate information that helps them make their proposals, and
okay, I'm going to ask you, I really hate to do this. I'm going to ask you, we're not going there right now. I'm gonna ask you to have that conversation, okay? Because it's a great question. It's a great question. We don't have but 10 more minutes, and we spent about 5 minutes on your question. Okay, go ahead, quickly. We have 30 seconds for the question.
I was wondering how you, okay. I was wondering if either of you had any plans to make the city more walkable. I know public transportation is so important, especially for like our elderly and disabled members, but I know, especially near the outskirts, it gets a little ridiculous, like just trying to walk through traffic, no sidewalks, and it just makes it very dangerous, especially for like people who go to school out there who have to walk home, like North Neck. I know a lot of people, they live maybe 5 minutes from the school, but it's like a 20, 30-minute walk just because it's so hard to like cross those roads.
Thank you. Where are you in school?
I go to West Charlotte.
Hey, that's it. There you go. That's why your mom had you out here, right? You're going to be the next leader. Maybe you'll be mayor. Hey, go for president. Go for president. Don't even worry about being mayor of Charlotte, okay? The mobility plan that we've put forward includes completing the city's sidewalk plan, which is a huge amount of work to do, completing the bike plan that we have, and completing actually roads that we need. So it's not just about mass transit, it's about mobility. That's why we don't call it a mass transit plan. It's a mobility plan. If we can get that 1 cent sales tax done, I think that we, in the next 10 years, it's going to take 10 years to remedy the 3-foot sidewalks, 5-foot sidewalks, sidewalks that have trees in them. All of those things have to be done. But over a 10-year period, if we have this, we would be successful in building out and requiring building out for sidewalks and a mobility plan.
So I've actually thought about this one a lot. So I'm running as a Libertarian. For those of you who don't know the Libertarian philosophy, it is very, very suspicious of anything the government does, if you can't tell from what I've been saying. But again, to be objective and honest, you have to give credit where it's due. And one of the things that Charlotte has done very well is put in what is overall an extraordinary greenway system. One area I would love to see us invest in is actually expanding that, because it's not just the walking in terms of accessibility, it's the opportunity for exercise, the connection of communities, and it makes the place prettier. And I feel like when you live in a nicer neighborhood, you feel better about it, and you're inspired to do more for it.
Okay, we have Juanita, and we have Gary, and we have Ken, and this young lady, and that's the end, okay, because we are coming to the end. Okay, so.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for your service. Many have alluded to a question that I was going to ask with regard to the pricing of the housing. I'm hoping that in the future there will be some type of regulatory agency that can regulate that, because if there's anything with price gouging, we're certainly seeing that in housing. But my question has to do with you, and you served so many terms, and if you're re-elected, what is your major goal that you foresee?
I want to see us provide for people to get to jobs. I've said this several times, and if I know it's redundant to those of you that have heard me speak. The medical campus will have 5,000 new jobs. And then when we have those 5,000 new jobs, I want those jobs to be accessible to anyone inside of our city. And so what we're trying to do, and what we are doing, is working with Central Piedmont, because most of those jobs will be 2-year degrees. And we are starting a program at Central Piedmont to get those jobs filled. But if you live out too far and you don't have transit, then we have to figure out how to make it possible for you to get to work. Now, the interesting thing is that Advocate Hospital, it's going to take a while for me to go from Atrium to Advocate, is going to build a bus system inside of their own campus. So all we have to do is get past Independence Boulevard so that we can get over towards Moorhead. These are the small things that can make a difference in someone's life and their ability. So that is where my focus is going to be, how to connect affordability to having a good paying job so you have the choices of how you want to live. And I agree, prices are high, interest rates are high, all of us are experiencing that. But we can get back, the administration is going to pump a lot of money into where that you can get energy savings, you can get a house, a pump, what do you call it, heat pump, instead of an HVAC system. They're going to have a rebate for electric cars. They're going to actually have a stove that's going to work without having emissions in it. And that stove, they've got one price at $100 and some dollars, $150, I believe. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity. It's going to come fast and furious, and so we need to be ready. So communicating those things are important, but for me, what I would work hardest on is getting decent jobs for people so they have choices how they want to spend their money.
Mayor, would you like to respond?
Yeah, so I think my number one goal is just accountability. And again, I go by the philosophy, don't say who do we blame, say what can we fix. And the 4 areas I want to look at, and I started with education, and I understand the mayor's office is only able to influence education through voice, but I will use my voice to say this is unacceptable. Second of all, overall transportation. The accidents that we're seeing, why are those going on? Why can't we bring people back? Again, not blaming anyone. What's the problem and how do we solve it? The third one, 100%, and obviously from the discussion, it's on everyone's minds, but it's affordable housing. And I am convinced that our zoning laws have led to this over time. And it's time to roll those back and give people control of their neighborhoods, watch the prices adjust. And then the fourth one, it's not jobs, it's upward mobility. And jobs is a huge part of that, but it's creating an environment and fostering this environment so that people are best positioned to become successful for themselves. It's not taking care of people. That's not the government's job, because they will always fail and you will just see so many people left out. That's what happens when you pick winners and losers.
Okay, Gary.
Good morning, Madam Mayor. Mr. Yates, Gary Young. I've heard a lot about development and a lot of opportunity across the city. As recently as you alluded to, large scale and small scale, the sidewalks is a lot of work. And when I hear this, I hear just that opportunity. We talk about opportunity for small businesses. What are ideas, what are programs that you actually have in place or strategies that are to come to enhance minority business participation, particularly increasing the black business utilization rate from 5%, or in your case, Mr. Yates, what are ideas that you have in place that you would implement to increase that minority business participation?
So many of you are aware that we have revamped our minority participation program completely. And on next Monday, you will see a recommendation to build a small business loan process for financing new entrepreneurs or experienced entrepreneurs at a level. Now, this is I'm not a banker, so is there a banker in the room? Thank you. Okay, so Bank of America and Truist are funding the CFIDs, whatever, the people that would lend to small businesses.
Oh,
thank you. Who said that? Jackie, thank you so much. So they're going to fund that to millions of dollars, and we are looking at loans as there's no restriction on, before you had to show that you earned $100,000. There is no restriction on the amount to borrow. It's just meeting the qualifications for the loan, and it is for small businesses, and it's going to be highly capitalized. And that will be on the agenda. Watch it so that you can understand it better than I can explain it.
So again, I think you really need to understand the root cause of the problem. So if you want to start a business, what do you have to do? You have to get financing, you have to get registered with the state, with the city, you have to get occupational licensing if it requires that, and then you have to go build your business in a place where the zoning allows it. All those hurdles are why we're not seeing businesses. I will remove hurdles so that people who want to start businesses are enabled to start businesses. And then when you see private money flowing in, then we're not paying for it. We're not on the hook when it goes wrong, but we get all the benefits when it goes right.
Okay, Ken, I'm gonna push you all now. 30 seconds and maybe 1 to 1.5 minutes, 30 seconds.
30 seconds, I'm gonna put them on the line.
Okay, question.
You talk about the 2040 plan and how ambitious it is in regards to affordable housing. There is a church that owned a tremendous amount of land and had some property that they were not able to use, but sold that land to enable a developer who purchased 35 acres next to it to say up front, he's rezoning from the residential, which was in the 2040 plan, to go to industrial. And
ask your question, time is up.
okay, I just wanted to know what your position would be on that kind of circumstance where developers actually come in and say, hey, we ain't doing this 2040 stuff, we're gonna do.
Okay, time.
I think that we know that regulations are changing, and so we had to get to June 1st. He got in under the wire. I mean, that's what developers do, but now we're in the UDO arena, so that won't happen after them because they'll have to follow the UDO rules.
So you're saying that they will be able to proceed with industrial on the west side when 95% or maybe 100% of it in industry is on the west side?
No, what I'm saying is that they came in under the old zoning rules where you could approve whatever was in that book, and now we have a new book that says something different, so we'll see a different set of opportunities.
Okay.
Now, I can't speak specifically to what people are going to do, but the UDO does talk about what's in a neighborhood area and that.
Okay, okay. Go ahead, quickly.
Earlier, Mayor Vi Lyles spoke about public and private partnerships. Something I thought was kind of interesting, utilizing Uber and Lyft maybe to augment transportation routes and that kind of thing. Are there other collaborative strategies that you feel might be able to work to help push any other initiatives forward?
I believe innovation is coming fast to us, and I don't have anything that comes to the top of mind, but there are things on unhoused, so we ought to be looking at tiny homes. We ought to be looking at ways that we can decrease the cost of the housing. We need a new strategy for that, so I'm looking at any innovation. Houston actually did housing first, and there's some communities that are following their lead. So I think innovation in unhoused and housing, lowering housing construction costs, are allowing, for example, the UDO allows you to put solar panels on. Solar panels are going to be at a discount in the Biden administration. And so when you talk about the high cost of heating and cooling your house, there are going to be opportunities to participate. But I think innovation is coming really fast, and would love to hear more about what we could do.
Yeah, I actually agree with the answer in terms of people living on the streets. If you get a chance, and this is some of my activism advocacy, Google Pastor Moses Colbert in Gastonia. I've been working with his Faith, Hope, and Love ministry for the last year. 2 years ago in Gastonia, the police assaulted a homeless war vet, and when Pastor Moses spoke up, they shut down his homeless ministry. 3 years prior to that, no one had died of exposure on the streets. After they shut him down in January of that year, 32 people died from exposure. This is what happens when the city inserts itself into private entity. What I would do is find the people who are out there helping people and do everything I can to support them.
Okay, 30. Okay. Mayor Lyles. The equity fund that was given to Johnson C. Smith, I think it was about a year and a half ago. I still think that there is some confusion or lack of educating the citizens and the alumni as to the utilization of those funds. And I'd like to know if there's going to be any intervention. I know we have a new president, as far as making sure the public know how the 80 million is going to be allocated, and what use is it going to be for that community, because I don't feel that we have anything you have that much money, but anything really viable. And if you have that much money, what is it gonna be used for?
You know, they had in this money, a transformation plan that went to the board. And the money that we raised, I think, is invested in Johnson C. Smith and ought to have economic impact all around that area. We went to the National Night Out and saw a lot of changes in that community. I think that that question is best for your board, and I know that you're in a transition from one chair to another, and I think you should be able to talk to your new chair and the new president and say, what do we want to do with this, and how are you doing it? Because it is ultimately, I'm not a professor or an educator, and we want to do the very best, but I'm really relying on that board and the leadership to be cognizant of what the alumni want and what the school needs to be successful.
Short answer, absolutely. If city council is going to take $80 million of our money and
Well,
give
it wasn't 80 million. It wasn't our money. It was a donation. It was money from the private sector.
Oh, well, in that case, it's up to the private sector. You got me there.
Okay, let's give
No, I mean, private money, that's good.
Thank you so much. Don't leave yet because we have announcements. Anyone have an announcement, and be sure to send your announcements to Steve because he can put them on the website. And before then, I would like to recognize Louise Woods from the former CMS school board member. We have Steve Crump. Raise your hand back there. Is he here? No. Not here. Not here. I thought I saw him walk in. We have Nasif Bajee from the North Carolina legislature.
Thank you, Nasif, for representing us so well.
Absolutely. And he is representing us so well. I don't think I see any other.
Derek, are you, wait a minute, is Derek here working or is he producing? Which one are you doing, working or producing? Both, oh.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone have an announcement? Yeah, I just said that. Anybody running for anything, that's a candidate. Okay.
I'll stand up, I'm sorry. My name is Charlene Henderson, and you all know me. I have been a faithful member to this community, and I am running for city council at large. This is a unique opportunity to bring community at the table. I do hear our mayor speaking on this, and so I represent our community. If you know me, look me up, Google my name, see what I've done since 2007. And this time, I want to be able to do it officially so I can work with the mayor and the council to make sure we have a voice at the table. Charlene Henderson, City Council at large, I need your support.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Yes, ma'am. I'll go ahead and go good. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Gary Young, for those who don't know. I'm currently running for Charlotte City Council District 2. I'm born and raised here in Charlotte. I have served as the chairman and president of the Charlotte Black Chamber of Commerce. I have owned my own business as a registered sports agent with the NBA as a contract negotiator. I have a very extensive leadership, business experience, and really trying to bring the acumen, those relationships, those connections to the people that need it most on the west side of Charlotte within District 2. And beyond that, having the ability to bridge the west side across the rest of the city and bring opportunity to all that need it. And so for those who live within my district, I humbly ask for your vote and your support. Even if you don't live within, I still would love and appreciate your support. And even for those who are actually a part of the Black Political Caucus, I would also love and appreciate your vote and your support this evening. So thank you. And again, my name is Gary Young. You can look more at votegaryyoung.com. Appreciate you.
We'll give you some honest tickets if you want.
Well, I've been on council.
Talk to you offline.
Yes, yes.
Hello, everybody. I'm Thornton Howard III, former middle school teacher, just retired. I know I look 25, but retired from Charlotte Mecklenburg School Systems. I taught 20 plus years in middle school, and that's my heart. I think that's the impact zone. That's where we shape and direct a child's life. And so even though I'm retired, I'm still going to commit to helping young people. I offer my time to speak to young people, whatever you need me to do. And in October, Lord's willing, I plan to do a podcast called 4 Letters for Life. Know that you're able, give your best, show that you care, get the right things done, be a goal achiever. All of these are life lessons, the 4 letters that I think can help young people move forward. So if you need me, need my services, I'm not asking for dollars, but we need to help our young people, 3rd through 8th grade. We got to get more intentional in that area. But look forward to 4 Letters for Life. I would appreciate your support, listening in, and see what we have to offer to you. God bless you.
Thornton was an outstanding teacher. I do remember him. Congratulations on what you're doing. You're going to be successful.
Let me go ahead and say one thing. August is Black Philanthropy Month. So again, I just listening to your comment. If you know, please, of a Black philanthropic institution or organization, please figure out a way to lean in, support, or engage. It is indeed Black Philanthropy Month. That's it for me.
Applesauce group.
You can. Come on.
In case you didn't know, Winston is the chair and CEO of the Applesauce Group. It's a great group. Okay, any other announcements?
Yes, ma'am. I'm Captain Franklin. Captain Franklin speaks. I'm retired Navy. I've done 30 years of service. And just like the gentleman over here, my target audience is the 13 to 20 population, to make sure that those individuals are inspired to launch and do great things. And so when you need, not if, when you need someone to come and speak to those individuals, I'm that guy. So just give me a call, get my card, and that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. And give your information to Steve also. Okay, if there's no... Oh, yes, okay.
I'm not sure if I shared this before or not. I am Dr. Blanche, and I'm an author, writer, and I'm writing a book on women and also men. And so I'll have 2 books coming out next year, and I'll definitely have a celebration in March. So, you know, anyone that have organization, I need to get your information and stuff. I mainly just need a bio and a picture of you, and I'll do the rest, okay? So I'm definitely looking for organizations and women and men. Don't, Ms. Carly, I'll tell you no more. But anyway, so, and if you went to my first book, my first book on Queens Forever, Greatness Under the Rock, I'm on Amazon, so you can check us out and everything. Thank you.
Woo-hoo. Thank you, Dr. Penn. Okay, if there are no further announcements, we're going to adjourn. Remember, we have to be out here at 10, so if you want to have any conversations, please do it in the parking lot. And thank you so much to our presenters for being here.
Thank you.
Let's thank Vi Lyles for her service.